One. Welcome back to DFS Rebels for the Week 10 slate of Sunday games. It is your boy Dante, back at it again with the one and only Mr. Rob, as we're sharing our favorite picks for Week 10, along with a couple of sleepers to help you build a lineup that you're confident in, and to, of course, help you fill up those pockets. So with that being said, it is time to join the rebellion.
That's right. That's right, Mr. Dante. Today we're bringing the heat, the fire, the hot sauce, the Carolina Reaper sauce. Nothing's hotter right now than Tua and the Miami Dolphins. And the matchup at home against the Cleveland Browns projects to be a shootout. It also currently is sitting at 49.5 points, which is the second highest on the slate. The Browns secondary is back to health. Doesn't really mean much against Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, though. They're not really going to be able to keep him in check. Tua is absolutely a lock in cash games. He is absolutely fine in GPPs. Um, Honestly, that's the safest route I'm going with Tua and and his two receivers. I might have all three of them in the majority of my lineups. What do you think?
That offense is absolutely smoking hot. You got that right. There's nobody that can stop them. I am not really too worried about the Browns secondary being fully healthy. The only player that I'm really worried about is Denzel Ward. He's one of the top corners in the league, in my opinion, but he alone will not be able to stop this Dolphins defense that's been next to unstoppable in the past, or excuse me, Dolphins offense has been next to unstoppable in the past couple of weeks. Nobody can keep up with Tyreek. Nobody can keep up with Jalen Waddle. Tua's been playing lights out. He's honestly an MVP candidate in my opinion, so I like any of them a lot. However, my quarterback of the week is the guy who actually played him last week, Justin Fields. I know everybody's on him now. He's been killing it. His price tag also went up by a good bit on DraftKings. He's now 6,500, but he is still cheaper than most of the top quarterbacks on the slate, and I think he'll be easily among the top guys in terms of points produced tomorrow. He's playing against the Lions, whose defense is historically bad. I know they played a little better last week, but also Aaron Rodgers didn't play great at all against the Lions. But overall, the Lions defense is ranked 29th against quarterbacks. There are weeks where they just looked historically bad, like I said. And my favorite pass catcher, the only pass catcher I'm really trusting to stack up with Justin Fields tomorrow is the tight end Cole Kmet, who's only costing 3,400 in DraftKings salary, and he's still, in my opinion, very underrated. He's seeing a large majority of red zone targets that the Bears have. So definitely have Fields in labs in my opinion, and also make sure Cole Kmet is stacked up with him.
Justin Fields is a great pick. I personally am only using him in cash games. DraftKings is still not pricing him high enough for what he's putting out fantasy wise. But just he's just too high owned to for GPPs for my liking. I'd kind of pivot off him into David Montgomery because right now Fields, Mooney, and Cole Kmet are all way too high for me. I'd rather beat the field with getting leverage like David Montgomery. But there's other running backs I like a little better than that. That's Saquon Barkley, of course, against the Texans is just a smash spot. It's a premium price tag, but he's just a fantastic play in cash and GPPs. He's just like some of the top tier guys. You don't overthink it. I'm talking about the same game. I love Damian Pierce. He's just so affordable, and the ownership seems to be decent. Like it's not super high, it's not super low. He's kind of like a free square this week. The entire offense runs through him, so there's no reason not to play him in cash and GPPs. What running backs do you like?
Yeah, so to go off of that, I do like Saquon a lot. I have him in my notes here. Obviously, I'm a little biased, plays for my beloved New York Giants, but he's just he's killing it this year. He's the focal point of that Giants offense. He is the most expensive running back on the slate, but rightfully so. Texans run defense ranked dead last against opposing running backs, so I predict that Saquon will run all over them tomorrow. And even though I don't have Damian Pierce in my notes this week, I do like him a lot too because he pretty much is the Texans offense. So I think anything that the Texans offense will accomplish tomorrow will be through Damian Pierce. However, another running back that I do like is a very sneaky play because he is cheap. He's only 5,900. Is Jamal Williams of the Detroit Lions. He's been having his best year in his career so far. He's starting to see more and more starting reps. DeAndre Swift is still hurt. He'll still see limited snaps tomorrow. And also the Bears' run defense is ranked 28th. They're struggling to stop the run. So I really do like Jamal Williams in that matchup tomorrow.
I love that. I do love that. Also, keep an eye on the Ezekiel Elliott news. If he is out, you press that lock button on Tony Pollard in cash and GPPs. Absolutely. But besides for Tony Pollard, definitely looking at ETN. The price tag is rising on him every week, and for good reason. He's on fire. The usage rate is one of the top projections, like every week, especially this week. He's likely finding himself a bit more passing role, as the Jaguars are almost a 10-point underdog against Kansas City. They're going to run the ball because they want to keep Mahomes off the field. They're going to be behind. They're going to be throwing the ball. He's perfect in both cash and GPP. I want to stick with that game for a minute. I also absolutely love Kristen Kirk. He's finally back to his early season fantasy ways. He makes for an excellent, affordable piece in a great, what should be a shootout, or at least garbage time production points. Um, the Jaguars will no doubt be playing from behind, which means Christian Kirk is going to be the number one guy they're throwing to. I would like him in GPPs more than cash, but the ownership is getting higher and higher each day as I'm watching. I personally don't love the matchup against Snead on the outside. So Zay Jones is also a nice piece if you want to look that way for deeper GPPs. You think?
Yes, so now just to go further off of that game, I have the big three players from the Jaguar side of the ball this week. You mentioned two of them. You mentioned ETN, you mentioned Christian Kirk. I have them both written down as great starts for tomorrow. But also, I'm looking at the quarterback, Trevor Lawrence, because as you mentioned, they're going to be behind. They're going to throw the ball a lot. So, of course, that's really going to fall on Trevor Lawrence's arm, Trevor Lawrence's skill, and everything. And he's going to have to produce, obviously, if the Jaguars are going to have any chance at potentially upsetting the Chiefs tomorrow. So I do like Lawrence tomorrow. The Chiefs defense is ranked 27th against opposing quarterbacks. Pretty much every quarterback that's faced them this year, as far as I know, has had good fantasy days, with the exception of Malik Willis last week, but that really wasn't his fault. So I do like Trevor Lawrence tomorrow. I like him paired up with either ETN or Christian Kirk, especially Christian Kirk, because they'll be throwing the ball a lot in my eyes. ETN will be a good start because obviously they will run the ball a fair, he'll get his fair share of carries in the ground. And when they throw the ball, he'll be getting a lot of targets off the backfield. And then I do also like that you mentioned Zay Jones as another potential piece in case Christian Kirk is not available, because Lawrence will be looking in his direction as well. And also can't forget about the tight end Evan Ingram. I know he was a little disappointing last week, but I still think he will see his fair share of targets too. He's still very heavily targeted on the Jaguars offense. So can't really go wrong with any of them. Definitely, if you want to start somebody off that game, though, especially if you want to get away from the high-owned quarterbacks like Justin Fields or Tua, then I'd consider Trevor Lawrence to have him in your lineup. He's only 5,400 in DraftKings salaries, a lot cheaper than most of the other top quarterbacks on the slate.
Yeah, no, you're right. And you just talked about Evan Ingram. He is one of the tight ends I am targeting, along with Greg Dulwich, but he's like way too chalky to play in GPPs. He will be in a lot of my cash lineups. Also looking at Dalton Schultz. He's also a great price. So I'm really just looking at those three tight ends, maybe some Pat Fryermuth. But one more receiver I'm looking at who has like no ownership is Kristen Watson. Romeo Dubs is out. The ownership on Watson is incredibly low. This kid's a freak of nature, and he has not shown it at all this year. So I'm hoping now that he's fully healthy, I trust that LaFleur is finally going to get him involved in this game. They should be behind, so Rogers is going to shoot it out. I love Watson as really low owned. He's taken down a GPP. I promise you that one. What do you think about Watson or somebody else on the old Green Bay over there?
Well, so Watson is bound for a breakout game, and I think he definitely is primed for it tomorrow because, as you said, Dubs is out. Watson is too talented to have the struggles he's been having so far, so he's overdue, in my opinion. But as I say, better late than never, and I think tomorrow against the Cowboys is the game where he really might show his worth to the Packers offense because they did take him the second round for a reason. So they definitely saw something in him when they took him that high. And then obviously Dubs has been the more consistent producer. He was taken later in that draft in the fourth round, but he's out tomorrow. So tomorrow's really Watson's opportunity to step up. A
Yep.
couple of other wide receivers that I do like, though not in that game, in different games, is in the Saints Steelers game. I like Chris Olave, who's only 6,800, cheaper than most of the other top wide receivers on this slate. He's facing the Steelers defense, who's ranked dead last against opposing wide receivers. And regardless if who's starting tomorrow, whether it's Dalton, whether it's Jameis Winston, I believe it'll be Dalton. Regardless of who's starting tomorrow, he'll be heavily targeted. We know Michael Thomas is out for the year. Jarvis Landry, you don't even know what's going on with him anymore. Kamara out of the backfield, but they got to throw the ball eventually. So I think Olave will see most of those targets. I do also do like Rondell Moore, who's only costing 5,200 in DraftKings salary this week. He is going to be obviously the second in the Cardinals passing attack to DeAndre Hopkins, but DeAndre Hopkins will likely draw that Jalen Ramsey matchup. So especially if Kyler starts tomorrow, whether or not Kyler does start tomorrow or not, I do like Rondell Moore. He's a cheap play with plenty of upside, and he really has been heavily targeted in the last couple of weeks. I expect that to continue tomorrow, regardless of who starts at quarterback for the Cardinals. And one other wide receiver that I do like that I think not a lot of people are talking about this week is Matt Collins of the Las Vegas Raiders, who's only costing 4,200 a DraftKings salary this week. He's going to be a great start because he's going to be number two in terms of pass catching options to Devontae Adams. Waller, Hunter Renfrow are both in the IR. They both missed an extended amount of time. And Matt Collins has already seen, decent fantasy production here and there with those guys being healthy. That's only going to go up tomorrow. It starts tomorrow. I'm really high on Matt Collins for tomorrow's game against the Colts.
I'm 100% with you on the Matt Collins play. You also got to look at First Moreau. They're both so cheap you can afford anybody after you put them in. One more receiver that I want to talk about, just one more, Amari Cooper. He's one of my favorites this week against the Miami secondary, who with like Xavier Howard, who's not been good this season at all, and he may miss the game anyway. Amari Cooper's red zone usage is elite. His expected target share got a huge boost with Njoku out. Miami is running a ton man coverage with cover three mixed in there, which Cooper just loves to eat up. So he's one of my favorite. You can do Donovan Peoples-Jones also is a fine value play. But just going back to the Raiders real quick, they're my number one defense of the week. Other defenses I do like is KC, Broncos, Steelers, Cardinals, Vikings. And then that's pretty much all I have for this week. You can go ahead and take it home, Dante.
Wait, just to go off, I just want to add real quick a couple of two things real quick actually from that one thing from the Browns Dolphins game. You did mention a couple of the pass catches, but he didn't mention who's going to be the number one tight end tomorrow. Hunter Bryant, only costing 2,700. I would not be surprised to see the Browns throw the ball a lot because that Dolphins defense isn't ranked well against the pass. As you said, Xavier Howard really hasn't, lived up to standards this year. So, and then especially to keep up with that Dolphins offense, they'll be throwing up. It's like the same situation as the Jaguars, I believe. So I'd take the risk on Hunter Bryant, who's only 2,700 DraftKings salary. He'll be the number one tight end tomorrow with Njoku being ranked with being ruled out. And you mentioned a whole bunch of defenses, but one defense I haven't heard you mention that I really do like tomorrow is the Titans defense, costing 3,200 a DraftKings salary. They're playing against the Broncos offense, who's done very little this year. There's really not one game I could sit from the Broncos and say, wow, they looked pretty good offensively. It's mostly been their defense. I believe that game will be a heavily defensive game tomorrow. And I think it's one that the Titans will come on top because the Titans defense really held their own against the Chiefs. There's no reason to believe that they can't do it against the Broncos as well.
Yep, no, I agree with all that, Dante. Absolutely all that. But that's going to be the end of tonight. So, guys, make sure you listen to us. Make sure you subscribe, like, check us out on Patreon. We're posting all our value plays, all the ownership projections. We post the optimal lineups free on Twitter and on Facebook at DFS Rebels. We love it. Let's keep cashing, guys. And it's time to join the rebellion.